and bid license policy. So now with also the non-oil companies and private companies participated in the first and second round bids for license. So now companies include some of the electricity factories as well as others. The private companies, of course, so some of the small and medium enterprises bid for. And the first shale gas field which has realized commercial production in last year, so which was owned by the Sinopec. So the Sinopec planned to establish 5 BCM capacity in this year and 10 BCM capacity in the 2017 in Sichuan, in the Fuling shale gas field, which is located in the Sichuan basin. And also CNPC accumulated production of commercial shale gas was over 100 million cubic meters in 2014, as is likely to achieve the 2.6 BCM in this year. So lastly, so I will focus on what is the next future, what is the future of as well as the gas production as well as the policy. So, so first, something about the oil. Oil still would be the bottleneck to the energy security in China. So, and even if so the oil consumption growth rate decreased, but still the gross production growth rate still would be the 5% also. And with also the domestic production, if the domestic production can slowly increase, but the growth rate is very, very low. So the growth, most growth of the consumption will be covered by the international market. So there are several forecasts. So first by IAEE and also the EIA. So the answer is forecasted by the CNPC Economics and Technology Research Institute. So we also, if there are some difference, especially EIA as well as the CNPC, so we also the prediction of the production is almost same. So it has no big potential. And on the gas, so have different scenarios of different institutions, but the government want to get the 410 billion cubic meters capacity in 2020, but it's hard. So it depends on the once it depends on the resources, another depends on the infrastructure, especially the pipeline system. And also there are some detailed forecast of prediction of supply and the consumption. So which kind of the supplies can be the domestic, the conventional, the shale gas, CPM, as well as the coal gas, and also the import. So import may be from the pipeline, from the LNG. Okay, so there are some detailed information. So and if this all can be achieved in 2020, so the gas will amount to at least 10% in the total energy primary energy consumption rate. And how to get this target? So the most important depends on the policy and the reform. So what is market-oriented reform is the petroleum oil and gas chain. So the total chain want to do more, and now the government is making the program. So maybe the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So the China government will publish the oil and gas sector reform policy. And also the state-owned enterprise reform, and now this year. So maybe the mid of this year, the Chinese government will publish how to reform the state-owned enterprises. And also the public system and infrastructure would be the key to get to the target. So the successful subsidy policy as well as the competitive price benchmark oil and gas. So the crude oil futures contract will be launched in the half of this year. This contract would be internationalized. And also, if the crude oil internationalized crude oil futures contract can be realized, so maybe the internationalized LNG contract, futures contract can follow the same model. And also the SPR as well as gas storage system. And for the environment issues, oil products upgrading will be finished in the end of the 2016. So more and more strict policies or laws will to give to the oil products. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Do you have it there?
Are you around? Or I just go?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's this one. Which one?
Oh, mine is over. No. It's mine. Just close it. Okay, that guy. Okay, great. Thank you very much. First of all, Mary, thanks for asking me to join this group. It's a great panel to be on. I need to tell you a little bit that I was originally thinking, in fact, till rather late in the game, I was going to be talking in a more technical session. So I tried to make this transition to a broader group, and also, since we really are the last talk of the thing, I don't want to bore you completely. But there may be some loss of flow in some of the transition as I talk, and I apologize, but I'll just do my best here. I'm going to be focusing on natural gas, and particularly on the natural gas, how we will use this increased amount of natural gas, and the impacts this will have on the energy markets on North America. And also, as you see, I'll be talking some about the prospects for exporting natural gas. So that's really the theme that I want to talk about. Having worked for more than a decade or two in the energy area, I'm always struck by the fact that we keep coming across technologies that we think are just going to make it. You know, just think of the 70s, synth fuels, in 2000s, the hydrogen, and whatever happened to carbon capture and sequestration. In fact, I haven't even heard many people talk about it, but again, I didn't dramatically go after every climate change case. But these are all technologies that are really promising, but they just don't quite make it. And then all of a sudden, energy economists are in a tizzy, in a turmoil, because we have a technology that has really proven. Now, some of it's old technology, some of it's new, but it's that combination of the hydraulic fracturing with the lateral or the horizontal drilling has really been a new technology, that combination anyway, at least in terms of its commercial application. So the challenge going forward really is, this is a new energy option, it's cost effective, and that presents a lot of advantages. And then you want to weigh that against potential costs in terms of possible damages on the land use side, water side, methane leakages, and so forth. I think the view in the United States is that these impacts can be managed. That's what we're operating under. I think that's a different view than may be happening in Europe. But that's the way people, I mean, we're still doing a lot of studies on this, but I think people feel that that can be managed, and that we are moving ahead with this great new possibility. And so I think that's important to emphasize. The other question, actually, since I'm in this panel, and I want to make another introductory comment, is to what extent is this renaissance really a renaissance. It's really a different, what's different about this renaissance? Well, actually, Laszlo, I think, talked a bit about the climate issue, and I do think that it's hard to say that this is going to really undo the requirement that it's not going to throw away any carbon policy. If you really want to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, I don't think this shale development by itself is going to happen, and that's been shown in some of our studies and some other studies that have been done that are model-based. So I think that's not likely to find the story there. I don't think it's a real game changer in the economy either. And again, I think these comments have been stated before, but that seems to be confirmed. I'm not even convinced that it's going to dramatically change the flows, the LNG flows in a major way in terms of, I mean, it's at least what you're not going to see. You're not going to see massive amounts of boats coming from both east and west shores of the United States going all over the world. The problem is the United States is really not in a cost competitive position as we sit now. Now that can change, but as we sit now, it doesn't look that way. And then finally, I think the bigger impact really will be on how it changes energy use in the energy markets. And it's going to create a lot of opportunities, and I think that's going to be a very exciting time for people who are in the business or people who are making policy decisions. And I should add, we call it the United States Renaissance. I actually think of it more as a North American Renaissance at the moment. I think the interesting relationships will come about as we think about Canada, Mexico, and the United States and how the trade will develop from that movement. In terms of what kind of impact that would have more internationally, I think the technology is easier to export than the actual physical gas volumes. And I really think that's going to be one of the big impacts that will happen, that at some point, some countries will start adopting it. The question is you got to find the right rocks. You got to find the right infrastructure. You got to a whole bunch of things have to fall in place. But when they do, I think that's going to have rather big impacts. So that's kind of what I wanted to say to begin with, and let me try to push forward a bit here on this. If I get this right. Oh, did I not do it? Down? There. I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff we've been doing at Stanford. We've actually been, we're finishing up a second study, and these studies are monsters. I mean, they're long-term, they're 2 years at a time. But we're finishing up some work, and I'm just going to kind of highlight a few thoughts I have about it. The actual conclusions of the study are still being developed, so kind of view this as Huntington's view is what I think is going to happen. What we've learned rather than these are the conclusions of our group. But we do try to bring in people from companies, government agencies, and university researchers, particularly people who are interested in some of the policy and strategic decisions. And we, as I said before, we're focusing this effort on the North American gas shale resource issues and the impact on those energy markets. And what we do is we try to lead that discussion with a set of model results. And with a set of model results, we try to compare and really evaluate these existing models. And really what they say about key policy issues. And let me just say a word about this. There's some great presentations from individual people by the modeling effort they've done. Well, just imagine if you take a problem that you've worked on, you walk down the hallway to your neighbor, and you ask him to program up the same kind of issue. He's going to develop a very different approach, possibly. Very often it will be different. And so it's that kind of comparison that we think actually pulls off rather strong interest. And The other thing is, as I'm talking a little bit about the models, one thing that's different about this model than some of the other models is that these models as a group look at energy markets overall and each of the individual fuels rather than just natural gas by itself. There's some excellent discussions of the models that work on natural gas, but that's not really, I mean, we do have a few of those, but the real strength, I think, lies in the fact that these models are looking at all markets together. So I'm going to just today talk about a couple of issues. One is just, we did talk a lot about defining the future natural gas supply conditions, and we decided very early on that we are not geologists, we are not experts, but we did bring into the group people that were pretty knowledgeable about it, people like at the Energy Information Administration, U.S. Geological Survey, Scott Tinker's colleague, Gertrude Gull, and Ken Medlock. So people like that, we tried to bring into the effort to help us sort through what really made sense from a supply perspective. And I'll say a few words about that in later, but we're not doing any kind of original work on that area. One of the issues we did look at quite carefully was the impact that these supply conditions might have on a very important policy issue in the United States, which is called the Clean Power Plan. And basically, for the moment, I won't go into a lot of detail on that. I'll just say that it's a plan to put in a utility-wide carbon intensity target. And it actually operates at the state level, but it does allow some cooperation with the different states up to the national level. But it's a policy, it's a climate policy just on the electric utility industry. And we wanted to look at that, and I'll make a few comments about that. The other issue we wanted to look at was the U.S. Ability to participate in the global LNG trade market. And that's kind of the game plan here. We asked we wanted to look at the gas supply picture, and one of the things we decided was when we looked at the Energy Information Administration projections, we've noticed that they run a low resource case, which is really, think about it as low amount of natural gas with not very optimistic assumptions about drilling productivity. And if I can point at it, that's this guy here. And what this line shows is starting in the beginning year of the projection, actually this is history, I guess, over time, this particular projection shows the prices rise with not a dramatic expansion in trillion cubic feet. So in other words, as the demand increases over time in this scenario, it's primarily seen in higher prices rather than in increased production. Then they ran another case with just the reverse assumptions: high resources and high drilling productivity improvements that were really significant. And they show this where the prices don't change a lot, but the production changes a lot. So what we've done is kind of run scenarios that represent both those two extreme cases. And this is the reference case that people may be familiar with, that the Energy Information Administration runs. So that kind of describes the cases that I'll be talking about in a minute. Well, what we did is we asked the models to represent these views, and you've got to understand that each of the models has a very different way of doing it. Some models work with resources, some models work with supply curves in each year. Some models there's just a range of ways they treat it. And what we observed very quickly is that in addition to the enormous uncertainty that you see in the resource-based estimates that I just showed you, there is also a great deal of uncertainty about how you would represent that within these models. And I think this uncertainty also reflects on how responsive people are to prices and how responsive consumers are to prices as well. And I just merely wanted to show this chart to give you an idea that one of the big take-home here is the uncertainty issue. That if you evaluate it with one model, there's a great advantage of that. But the downside of that is that you may be closing off, thinking about other possibilities. And so the underlying message is to be very, very clear that there's a great deal of uncertainty involved in this. Because of the great ranges of things, I find it easier to kind of talk about more generally what we're seeing as we go through these models. And I call these things elasticities. They're really responses. They're not econometrically pure elasticities, but they're responses that you get from the models. And it says that as you bring on the new resource, as you bring on additional resources and you're reducing the cost and the prices of natural gas, how much will some of these factors change? And so, for example, in the last column here, I kind of just did the average. If you decrease the natural gas prices by about 10% below reference levels in 2040, you're going to get a increase in total natural gas use of 5%. So 10% increase, a 10% decrease in price leads to a 5% increase in natural gas. A lot of that happens in the electric power sector. And then on coal, you get also a fairly large displacement of coal, almost of the same amount. But these are in terms of the average result here. Liquids, not a great deal of movement, although some models did have a little more movement because they have chemical industry and refining industry responses more explicit in there. Nuclear tends not to have an effect unless it's really the opportunities for replacing nuclear are the new nuclear facilities. And so if you're building a lot of nuclear facilities in your reference case, which some models do and some models don't, but if you're building some of that, then as you bring in more natural gas, lowering the natural gas price, you will get some displacement of nuclear, but you won't if you don't have that nuclear built into the reference case. And then renewables you get a bigger impact there on renewables than you do on nuclear, and that's because the substitution effect tends to dominate in that for that fuel. The total primary energy actually increases as a result, and why does it increase? Well, the price of energy is actually lower overall because of the natural gas prices and also because of electricity prices. So it totally increases. Carbon dioxide, that's really a fairly modest effect on carbon dioxide. And actually some models show that carbon dioxide emissions actually increasing as a result of this kind of price change. Others show it decreasing. And it's really interesting because why does that happen? Well, really you get well, first of all, you do get a lot of displacement of coal by having natural gas, but you also get some displacement of nuclear and renewables, which operates in the other direction. You also get more economic growth with this carbon dioxide, with the lower natural gas prices, and also a slightly stronger economy. This is the economic effect. We're getting about a 10% increase, well, actually, it'd be 100% increase, leading to maybe a 2% higher stat. Good. Okay, so then finally, and then also, as mentioned before, electricity sales actually scoot up because electricity prices are lower. We did do evaluation of the Clean Power Plan. I'll kind of skip over this, other than the fact what the ultimate impact is that the natural gas operates as kind of a bridge fuel for a lot of the policies. There are lots of ways you can run this scenario, but overall it tends to increase the natural gas prices and natural gas use, and that tends to cause the gas price to shoot up. So as a result of that, you would think that if you had lots of natural gas around, that it might be a little less costly than if you had considerably less natural gas. And so we did run sensitivities on that, and in fact, we did find that that this kind of a policy was sensitive. It's sensitive to many things, but it's sensitive to the amount of natural gas being available. Less natural gas making the policy more costly. And in terms of the LNG opportunities, I think it's kind of consistent with what people seem to feel, that the problem in the United States is that we really are, and North America in general, we really are far away from regions. It is costly to get the gas, the LNG to these regions. It doesn't mean that there's not any LNG volumes, but it does mean that absent major changes in the costs of the infrastructure costs of getting LNG abroad, it's not going to lead to a dramatic change. But we did do a case where we did do stronger demand in both Asia and Korea. We kind of artificially stimulated these demands by asking the question that if they were phased out on coal and there were no other policies promoting renewables and so forth, and in Korea it was actually a phase out of nuclear capacity, it led to an overall increase in demand, which led to some increase in natural gas demands, but wasn't dramatic. Wellhead prices, which is a big issue, or natural gas prices in general, don't rise a lot after, now again, these are long run kind of projections, so they don't pick up transitional movements, but the longer run, there aren't, I'm talking about massive increases in natural gas prices. We also did a case with Russian supplies, choking off. Basically, transmission, it's basically the Ukrainian pipeline system. We just didn't allow flows going through that. And we also were more pessimistic about the cost of LNG, the cost of Arctic frontier supplies in Russia. We did the same thing with more plentiful U.S. supply. Obviously, if you have more U.S. supply, it's going to push the prices downward, and that's going to basically lead to a situation where there's more of an incentive to export, and we do see exports increasing in that case. And then we asked the case, and I put up a few representative numbers there, but again, we then asked the case about the stronger Asian demand, and the same case I just talked about, the stronger growth from China and Korea, and it did not, the impact was very similar to what I had just described in terms of the numbers. So that was, I think we were all set. So basically, kind of my general impressions to date so far as we're looking at these results is that it's really hard to overstate the uncertainty about the future market conditions. When someone describes to you that this is where we're going with this sector, and this is where we're going with markets, there's a great deal of caveats that have to be put into place on that. Again, just in terms of the downstream carbon dioxide emissions, which I think the models are quite good at, I don't think they quite have all the upstream the impacts that one would want to include. But in terms of the downstream impacts, it looks to be relatively small compared to the impacts that are actually happening on the energy markets. And I mentioned before the key role of gas supply in the clean power impact costs, and also the LNG exports look a little uncompetitive. So I hope I've kind of given you a little flavor of that. The only thing I'd say in passing is that we want to move more into the international realm and round up a few more models. So if any of you out there want to participate and can say something internationally, that would be great. So thanks very much.
audience? All right, Robert.
So, I don't have any microphone, but if somebody can't hear me, since you were the last one, Bill, and actually at the end, I think the last point was that U.S. LNG was uncompetitive in maybe several or many markets, something like that. Can you speak to the fact that there actually are real live signed contracts for this LNG? And do you believe that these signed contracts are just not binding at this point, or that for some other reason they're not going to flow?
It's on, right? Good. What I wanted to say was that the opportunities for massive expansion from the United States for the LNG facilities, I think people, unless conditions change a lot, I think if these projects are built and allowed to build and people want to continue building them, I think they're going to be looking for markets to sell their natural gas. And sure, they're going to work out deals, and some of them will be some of them will work their way into the system. But in terms of a long run opportunity, I just don't see that a lot. And I think we heard from the Petroleum, I forgot her first name now, but I think she was talking a lot about some of the in Russia, what happens with these. You set up a contract price, and then Gazprom has the flexibility to come in and underprice it. And I wouldn't be surprised if some companies try to do that. Now, having said that, I'm fully aware that there's going to be a lot of movement in the infrastructure costs, and I think that's what's going to happen. There are going to be pressures on that, and that might change the situation quite a bit.
Yes, our view is that U.S. energy is very robustly competitive, and we project very significant amounts coming out from North America for two reasons. One is that the U.S. energy projects, to a very large extent, can free ride on the already sunk cost pre-existing infrastructure. And this matters a lot because some of the other competing energy projects are at the end of the world. Okay, Northern Australia and very remote territories, East Africa, Mozambique and Tanzania, which are very underdeveloped, very poor countries with very weak institutions. The Yama Peninsula, I mean, in the original tribal language, that literally means the end of the world in the Russian Arctic. So those projects, there are very high project costs, whereas for the US projects, very often it is import terminals that are being turned into export terminals, so you have the pipeline connections, you have the storage facilities and so on. You still have to do your homework, but the project management is much easier. And the second is the corporate structure. For a conventional energy project, either in Australia or in Africa, it is vertically integrated oil companies, so the upstream liquefaction trade is totally integrated. You have to lock in your capital for a long time. You have to run the project management with the upstream risk and all the geopolitical risk. Consequently, a company like Shell or ExxonMobil would have somewhere between a 12 to 15% IRR expectation for these projects. Whereas in the United States, the liquefaction, which is the most capital-intensive part of the value chain by far, is midstream, is disaggregated. Okay, the LNG export projects don't invest in upstream, you have to invest full-scale market to buy it. The liquefaction projects operate in a master limited partnership midstream structure, which enables a very low cost financing for these projects. And of course, there's no geopolitical risk. So if you run numbers, for example, you compare the US Gulf Coast with Mozambique. Mozambique currently has around 400 basis points super risk review because of the political risk. If you start with a $5 per MMBtu US gas, but you have a 400 basis point cost of capital for the most capital-intensive part of the value chain, you need $3 per MMBtu gas in Mozambique to generate the same present value from your project. And that is a major advantage for the US project. And I think when you develop a structural model, you have to factor in the different cost of capital for the US projects.
Yeah, let me just be clear. I really think it's a question of timing as well. I mean, I think the comments I was making were really more thinking about long term. I think that there are some near-term factors that we just
Troy Thompson with Chevron. So here I was going to, on implications, pick up something you talked about, technology. Specifically, Scott, I'd like to know your thoughts in terms of the transferability of the technology where it's currently practiced in the U.S. For instance, getting millions of pounds of product to site. And what do you see kind of, is it transferable?
Well, it's transferable in the markets that already deal with oil and gas. So if some of the infrastructure is there, then they can ramp up more quickly to do the kinds of things that need to be done for large scale unconventional reservoir. It's going to take longer, obviously, but it's not. So that's a big chunk. Getting water, getting province, getting roads and trucks and infrastructure in place, and power, and all the kinds of things that have to happen. So these take long, big commitments, big government, industry, and public agreements and commitments to do that. So it is certainly above ground challenges for it. I think you'll see it happen sub-regionally. It's not going to just explode across the world and the globe, but I think you're starting to see it actually happen sub-regionally where the demand is strong and the need is there and the public will is there, they have the resources. So those things come together to change that.
Ilhan Bosch from Boğaziçi University. I think the panel very interesting overview of the prospects of shale. My comment is, it seems to me the potential of the shale going all over the global world, and not in 5-10 years, but in a more longer time horizon, is kind of being downplayed. These two presenters talked about timeframes running into the 2040s. We're talking about 25 years from now. And our colleague from China has just presented a very extensive plan of how they are planning to develop shale oil deposits. And we know shale oil deposits are all around the world, and we just saw a plan of developing it. On the other hand, you are very right in saying that in most of the world, the infrastructure is not yet available. But when we are talking about 25 years from now, then the possibility of having shale in the picture in a global way should be out there. And this certainly will affect what will happen to US exports of LNG in 25 years. This will certainly affect what will happen to renewable prospects in 25 years. But I did not see that possibility in your predictions.
Yes. This is a very good question, and we actually did this work. So we had a so-called Golden Goose for shale gas report of the World Energy Outlook, where we looked at a Golden Goose case where everything just goes well, and we also looked at things when the tide is turned back, and we looked at the differences. Now, I also have personal business experience from my previous job trying to develop non-conventional gas outside North America. There are two things. One, which will not change even in 20 years' time, and that's the underlying geology. I mean, shale plays are not created equal, and the European shale plays that we were looking at are 4,000-5,000 meter depth compared to the 2,000-3,000 in the United States. So the drilling cost is double if you're lucky. That is not going to change because this is how God created it. The second is my most worrisome moment during the project was that we had to charter a cargo plane to fly in heavy equipment from Houston to eastern Hungary because there was not a single piece of that equipment in Europe. The entire service sector infrastructure is missing. Now, theoretically, that can be developed. I believe in China it will be developed. But for a company like Schlumberger or Halliburton, unless they believe that there will be a large-scale business opportunity, why would they invest in building up this service infrastructure? So there's in our mind, biggest uncertainty in our view is China, because China could succeed in our view. I let you comment more on China. Unfortunately, we are reasonably sure that Europe will fail, and we are also reasonably sure that India will fail. India, because of the population density, the most densely populated region in the United States where there is large-scale shale gas production is the state of Pennsylvania. India has an average population density 5 times Pennsylvania. Okay, so and you have the land use issues and the water use issues which are prevalent in India, and again, it's difficult to see. You can tell the same stories about South Africa as well. So basically, the biggest single uncertainty is China, where you conceivably see China succeeding. And in our China success scenario, basically Chinese gas imports may decline by the equivalent of the current not only just Malaysian LNG exports. So it's a brutal impact on global gas markets if China indeed succeeds. We also see Argentina at the edge of maybe succeeding on Vaca Muerta. Mexico is also an interesting case because they have very ambitious and very progressive, very forward-looking energy sector reform, which is a good news. Bad news is that there will be an endless flood of dirt cheap American gas into Mexico, which means that the Mexican developers will have to achieve the cost efficiency of the Texas producers from day one, because they will compete with the same prices, and that's a very, very difficult part. But maybe that's also
very good question. So, we talk about the shale gas impact. So the natural gas itself is in the beginning stage in China. So, and the natural gas production, as I mentioned, increased since 2000 years also. And in the non-history, so the Chinese oil companies and government came much more advanced natural gas. And that means so that even with the conventional natural gas, so the infrastructure is so large, so developed. Of course, when we talk about the shale gas, so the infrastructure is very important. And anyway, so the announced 3 pilot projects by the Scientech, CNPC, as well as the local state-owned enterprises, just the pilot projects. So even if the government in 2010 put forward a very ambitious plan, so it also, the end of this year, so the 5 years ended, so the plan is not, especially so the 2020. At that time in 2010, so the government put forward a very ambitious plan, now they reduced it. So that means, so of course, the infrastructure would be one of the key problems. And also, compared to the United States, so the water accessibility or the water availability is also key obstacles to develop the shale gas. So, and anyway, so both the shale and unconventional and conventional. And the conventional gas, so the last year, 2014, so the fluid geology reserves amongst the 1 TCM, so it's big discount in the last year. So that means so the gas itself developed very fast. So both the conventional and unconventional, but they need time. When we talk about the shale gas, it needs time. So maybe the 2020 would be a big step, and maybe the next 2025, 2030, especially 2030 would be a very big step for China.
I was happy to see the forecast of natural gas and that kind of thing. Interesting. The reality is, though, if we were having a workshop on nuclear, China would have a tremendous growth demand here too. They're building 29 reactors today. And if it was on hydro, actually they just built a 25 gigawatt power plant, all 3 borders. And if it was on wind and solar, they'd be growing in that too. And the reality is China has to build a bunch of new stuff to feed its engine. I think it's going to hit some realities of energy underpinning the economy, and you can grow quickly on small numbers. That's going to all happen in China. But the energy demands are remarkably huge, particularly since they're all the products that we all consume and demand around the world. So it's a major fun thing to watch in the world to see how this whole game plays out. I think the challenge with natural gas, maybe why we were appearing a little calm about it, is is if you look at the total original place estimates from the 4 basin studies we did, it's less than 4,000 trillion cubic feet, or the whole tank. And we'll probably, you're recovering about 10% of that in all of our various scenarios. So 400 TCF, it's a lot of gas, but it's about 3 years of global consumption at today's rates from all 4 of those shale basins. Now that's 3 years. That's a lot of produced gas. It leaves a lot behind, 90% left behind, and the right price, the right need, the right lack of other options, the right technologies, the right everything. You go back and get some more of that. And I think that'll probably happen. Don't know, but it probably will. But these are big numbers that we consume in the world today. How much are we going to move around? I don't most of it. I deal a lot with boards like Sempra and Dominion and I think their eyes are kind of big right now. How long is that price spread going to stay there? It was pretty nice at $14 and $3 in Asia and in the U.S., but when it goes to 5 and 8, that's a little bit riskier proposition. So I think LNG has to consider that global BTU price spread as part of its reality. Some of it's going to happen. I don't think as much as we thought a year ago.
Yeah, actually, your question is one of the reasons why I'm a little more guarded about the opportunities for North American exports longer term. Actually, many of the projections that we're looking at, many of the frameworks, they do anticipate the kinds of things you're talking about, but at a fairly slow rate that they anticipate some of that. And actually, one question I have is on the Chinese situation. In addition to the infrastructure, to what extent is the organization of the industry? I've heard several people say that you really have to be organized in the industry. Is that true? Or?
Yeah, so just mentioned, the Chinese government wants to reform the petroleum chain, all the petroleum chain, so upstream, the transportation, as well as downstream, import, as well as export. So also we took there's some studies out there, reorganization of companies. But my point is organization of the oil companies is not the most important. So what the most important is that more and more companies can participate in the upstream, the downstream. So that would be the cases. So and what is the results of the and also the planning. So the end of this year only the beginning of next year we publish the report.
Right, I think we need to cut this session off. It's been a very interesting session. If you have any other questions, I'd say meet our speakers afterwards to ask them your questions. But let's thank our speakers for this.